you come in as head of HR, CHRO into a corporate, and you were to report one KPI around talent acquisition. Like, which is this one KPI you would choose? Hi, this is Tibor from CleverConnect. Welcome to yet another episode of CleverCoffee, where HR leaders meet over good coffee. Today we have Marcel joining us as our guest, and I've asked my best friend to summarize the introduction for Marcel. And here is what it came up with. So 1 second.
Marcel is one of Germany's sharpest minds when it comes to data-driven recruiting. He's the guy who looks at KPIs not just as numbers, but as a way to fix the real-life pains in HR. He's known for saying that time to hire might be the most useless KPI ever, and then actually showing you what to track instead, like hiring speed, cost of vacancy, and even whether your Christmas party budget could come straight from smarter recruiting analytics.
So grab a coffee, lean back, let's dive in. Welcome on the show. Good to have you. Hi, Marcel.
Hi, Tibor. Thanks for having me.
So I don't know like how accurate the ChatGPT description was actually, but let's start with like diving into KPIs. So Marcel, if you were to rate the maturity of tracking KPIs and talent acquisition functions like across DACH, where would you put it on a scale from 1 to 10, and why?
You mean the maturity level of all corporates in the DACH region?
Yes.
Oh, I guess let's estimate it around 20 to 30% how proficient they are in terms of using KPIs or even the right KPIs. Sometimes they already use some metrics, but I don't want to define them as KPIs.
It's interesting. I mean, and I'm pretty new to HR tech, right? So like basically like a year into HR tech, and I would say I have a similar observation, but I don't get like why is that the case? Like what's your observation
Yeah,
of that?
that's more or less easy to explain because the origin of HR professionals is hardly in controlling or in any data-driven profession. It's more or less that they are psychologists or lawyers or whatever. So kind of these roles when they are responsible for general HR topics, or if they are responsible for HR in general. Yeah? So therefore, they are not used to be an online marketing professional or something like this, where you always learn how to use the data and the metrics to adapt all your measures and activities that you do in TA. Yeah, and this is more or less the reason why they are not that proficient in using the right metrics and KPIs for their use.
Do you see some kind of change in there? Is that environment changing, or is this stagnant like 10 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. So it has changed dramatically. Yeah? On the one hand, it has changed because of the availability of data. Because if you look into social media, if you look into your HR tech stack that you have available, if you check everything or every data available coming across with your career website or something like this, then you can always adjust all the things that you have done so far. So therefore, the availability is the one thing. And on the other hand, all the people developing or let's say growing up in HR these days have learned to use all the data because they have learned to use, for example, social media so far for many, many years. And this is also why they are a little bit more, let's say, sensitive about all the data that come across in HR.
Makes sense. So imagine you come in as head of HR, CHRO into a corporate, and you were to report one KPI around talent acquisition. Like, which is this one KPI you would choose?
I would never, ever reduce myself to just one KPI because this would lead to different or difficult ways even. I would reduce it to 3 KPIs at least. So one for time, one for costs, and one for quality. This is always the triangle of KPIs that I would use because time is key. This is clear, I guess. Yeah. So it has to be fast in terms of, or from the perspective of the candidates, as well as for the perspective from the corporates. That's one thing. When it comes to cost, of course, we don't have unlimited budget, so therefore we have to be as efficient as possible. And the third thing is quality. Of course, we want to hire the best talents in the market. Unfortunately, we don't have the time and the budget to do so very quickly and cost efficient. So therefore, we have to find any ways how to select and how to select the right candidates, and also to use valid methods to do so. And because it doesn't matter if you hire not the best ones or the needed quality, because then you have to start again 1 week later after you have hired them. So therefore, always this triangle of KPIs. And when it comes to time, for example, you said it already in the introduction, I hate to use time to hire, for example, as KPI, because it's so useless. Yeah. So if you just track how many days you need in average for the whole organization to hire someone, then there is no content in it. Yeah, so what does it say if you are a large corporate with, let's say, more than 10K employees, and your average days of getting a signed contract is 60 days? Is it fast? Is it not that fast? I have no clue. Yeah? So therefore, it doesn't matter. And it's just the average. So this means if you are 99% really quick in hiring someone, and for 1%, just one role, which was really hard to fill, and you needed, perhaps you and your team, 2 years even, then it means that the KPI is fully affected on the 2 years on the one role, which was really hard to fill. And therefore, your number at the end, which you have to report to your board, is completely gone. Yeah? And on the other hand, it doesn't really show that you had a great hiring success. Yeah? You had a success because you finally filled the role that were vacant for at least 2 years. And the board would say, oh, sorry, but this is not acceptable. You needed 2 years. Yeah, but this role was so hard to fill that you can't find anyone else instead of waiting 2 years. So therefore, this KPI is really not the best one.
Makes sense. So can you put them in an order of importance, like the 3 KPIs, or is it generally possible? Or is the answer, it really depends on the role or on the company?
I would say it depends on your needs. So when you have done a status quo, or when you have done an analysis that you have seen, okay, there is a lot of bottlenecks in terms of time, then of course you need a KPI to have any steering metric to see if you reach your goals. On the other hand, it's if cost is your problem and you have to hire, let's say, 1,000 employees, or you are a scale up and you want to grow really fast, and the board is saying to you, you just have 500 euro budget to hire, let's say, 500 people, then good luck. But that's not even possible. So therefore, it's really depending on what the need or what the strategy of your company is, and then you can adjust all the metrics in terms of your numbers, in terms of your strategic goals.
Makes sense. If we go through the numbers like one by one, and let's start with time to hire. So you already mentioned it's not about the overall time, but potentially also about like the vacancy cost. But then it also becomes difficult. I mean, coming from sales, a vacancy cost is relatively simple because a person is supposed to sell X amount of euro. You can break that down to a month and say this is the vacancy cost. This becomes like way more difficult if you speak about like an engineer for like a large car manufacturer or something. Like, what's the vacancy cost of not having this one engineer filled? Like, how easy is that in reality, or is there like an easy trick to have like an average across the board?
Let's say there are roles where it is easier to define this metric. For example, as you said, in sales, it's easy to calculate, okay, if we don't have a key account manager in this role for a specific period of time, then you can easily calculate what your loss is or the turnover that you don't reach for that time. So this is easy to calculate. Where it is getting more complicated is when you have some administrative roles. Yeah, for example, any accountant that you say, okay, if we don't have filled the role in our accounting team for 3 months, what does it mean? But at the beginning, when you start to create a new role, you think about that if you pay someone a specific amount of money, you would think that the person will be that efficient or that productive that you have a factor of X, let's say 3 times higher, that your value add of this person, of this role, will have a value add to your company, to your business. And this is the factor that you have to define. And sometimes this is easier, as we said in sales, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. If you look for example, into care, then it's easier. If you are specified in elderly care, for example, then you know if this role isn't filled for a specific amount of days, then you know exactly what the insurance is not paying to you as a company. So then it's also easily to calculate. The problem in practice is often that you as an TA expert or as HR professional are, if you're lucky, invited to the budget round for next year. Yeah? And then you say, okay, if we don't have filled these roles, then the cost of vacancy is amount X. And then often the controllers or the controlling lead is sitting there and saying, yeah, sorry, but the cost of vacancy is not a real cost. Yeah, so we don't have to budget it because we don't have to pay something for it. It's just the amount that you expect that we don't would earn in that time. But it will be a real cost at that time when you say, okay, we have to hire instead an interim manager, for example. We have to have not part-time worker, but in German it's Zeitarbeit.
Work extra.
Yeah, or the temps. So this was the word I was looking for. Temporary workers, for example. Or if you have to ask any subcontractor to cover your business, then it's real costs. That will be generated. So therefore, this is then part of the real discussion afterwards when you say, oh, you need some more budget for measure A or measure B, whatever. Yeah? But that you really can show them it's not only fiction that we will have a loss or that we will lose turnover, but we really have to pay instead for anything else if we don't take care for the cost of vacancy.